see because there's so many other logos. But yes, we're there. Oh, there's Celcom there. Celcom's a very good service provider as well.
Okay, any more questions from the floor? Okay, I'll ask the panelists then. We talk a lot about, from your perspective, of using social media as a personality, as a social media strategist and a politician as well. But let's go to the other side as well, to the public, the participants, and their personal branding. To what extent should they take their personal branding, their content, their conversation, and what they put out there seriously for their benefits or to the community? I think we'll each have... Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say that what's happening now in this world is unprecedented. Never before has information been available to us in such a way, and never before have we been able to engage the other way as well. What is occurring now today is that all our personalities are starting to become virtual personalities. I no longer have to meet you in the real world. You are becoming a sim, like a The Sims, You are becoming a person that exists in the cyber world with a personality. And that could be a very good thing. It could be a very bad or dangerous thing as well, if it's not managed properly or responsibly. So we all should think about where that's going, because one day you all may be walking down, I may be sitting here with a new social mobile gaming platform, and I will just shoot you all, and go, and you'll be like, "Ayo, I can't believe this shot us. How rude." And because of this experience in the virtual world, I'll go outside and you don't want to take any pictures of me because you don't like me because I shot you. Yeah? Things that happen in this world are different from what we are. We are social creatures. We have to manage that carefully. I don't have the answers for where it's going or what we're going to become. My 3-year-old wakes up in the morning, comes up to me, "Daddy, iPad, Angry Birds." I woke up in the morning at when I was 3 years old and scratched myself. Times are changing. Where is it going? I think it's a very exciting time for us, but I do think that we have to approach this technology responsibly and with a little bit of caution.
I totally agree with Jason. I would just add, we're at a moment in history, as you pointed out, that it's the first time where the past doesn't necessarily inform us of where the future's going. There's a lot of new things that are just being created and happening. And I think responsibility is a word you used. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. And this is real. You are creating a digital footprint that, as long as the internet or our planet exists, will be there. There will be a record. There will be you will have a reputation online that will affect your real life. I think you just have to be always cautious, thoughtful, as you pointed out earlier too. Not to just to not just go with your first instinct to put something out there, because it's going to go out to the world and it's going to be there forever and it will follow you. There's employers, in the United States at least, that they tell you they won't, they won't check your Facebook or your Twitter or whatnot, but they do, and they find ways to do it even if you block it, and it affects you. It affects people's real jobs. There's a whole new business too, like Reputation Defender, the Reputation.com. The entire point of this new sort of silo of technology business is to protect your online reputation and your presence. So I just follow with that.
I'm going to take up where Jeremy just ended just now. This is a very serious development today, because social media, not by design but by default, will make Big Brother and all the various intelligence agencies in Malaysia, Special Branch and all that, obsolete. Not because of any super mainframe that's spying on people, but because you're putting your whole life online. You don't need an intelligence agency anymore. All I need to do is check out your Facebook page and I know who you support for the elections. That's all it takes. So we are just creating an entire database of intelligence for free. And what Jeremy said just now, employers, check it out. Prospective employers, when somebody's coming in for an interview, they will check your Twitter account, they will check your Facebook account, and because people tend to be so free and candid, they're going to figure you out very quickly. And I think the question about projecting yourself as a brand, that's too late, because you've projected yourself completely. You've presented yourself almost without any clothes, figuratively, and it's very, very difficult for you to remove those footprints. Even though you've blocked your FB account or whatever, there's enough of a trace online for people to figure out who you are. And this is going to be a key tool for the future, whether it's for governments, whether it's for businesses, whether it's for organizations, because the sentiment analysis that people can do on people nowadays, other people, is going to be tremendously detailed. It's not just a question of putting your thumb in your finger in the wind and a dipstick survey of what's going where. You can tell exactly what makes that person tick. And if you have an infrastructure in place that can aggregate all that information for you, so for instance, if I'm meeting with somebody right after this, and I know exactly what he likes, what he doesn't like, that he's, you know, he likes the fan page of my political opponent, I know exactly what buttons to press and how to approach that person. Now this is scary, but it's not anything by design. There is no big brother there, because we've actually created it ourselves by the stuff that we're projecting online.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any more questions from the floor? Okay, the lady in front.
During election in state last year, is social media give such a big impact to the country?
In general, did it just impact the country? Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, that's just, it's how the game is played now. And it's a good question to sort of dovetail on the last question we just talked about. It's the normal. You have to be aware of it, you have to use it. There's many benefits to using it, and you know, when it first started, you know, that when Barack Obama's campaign actually talked to some of the best, brightest, newest minds on social media and created their own sort of social media apparatus, you know, for fundraising, for organizing people at a real grassroots level. You know, it's taken off, and now every campaign uses it. After the Democrats used it very well in one party to win the presidency in 2008, the Republicans then came back in 2010 because they were knocked out the first time, so now they all embraced it. So actually now Republicans outweigh Democrats in terms of amount of followers and the amount of things they put out on different social media channels to this day. So I just think it's so pervasive right now. You know, one thing we were actually talking about backstage too is that the president in 2008, when he was running his first campaign nationally, you know, he utilized Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter so effectively. He was able to tap certain generations of voters and who really are used to that sort of you know, receiving information that way, and they are also able to use it from a fundraising standpoint, and it's highly effective. I think that one thing now, because there's a Supreme Court case called Citizens United, which created what we have now, which are super PACs, have elevated the amount of money. So it's sort of actually pressing down social media in some ways, but it's just, you know, every politician, if you put out a press release, you also put out the Twitter, the Facebook, it's all synchronized. You have your influential allies put it out too. It's just, that's how the game is played. And you also contact the people to put pressure as well through those channels.
Can I ask Jeremy a question, just following up from that? How do you, this is, you know, instructive for me as well, but how did the Obama campaign translate the millions of people on their online database into real life foot soldiers? I mean, going out there, knocking on people's doors. How was the conversion played out from the online following. You know, I think he was one of the first politicians to get more than 1 million Twitter followers and Facebook fans. But how was that harnessed into actual political action on the ground?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It goes with sort of a theme we were talking about of using social media in the real world. So in elections, you have field organizers. It's the front lines, the people that go out into communities and they talk to their supporters, and then they get those supporters to tap into their networks of friends and colleagues, and they hold house parties and house meetings, and they knock on doors and they make phone calls, which are still, by the way, the most effective way to run a campaign. So all this talk about social media, they've proven that it's still that much more effective to make a phone call and a person-to-person connection with your neighbor in terms of moving forward a candidate or a political position, and even more effective to actually knock on the door. So your question, it's fantastic. That's how it works. They created a program called MyBarackObama.com, and it was a platform that was essentially Facebook for the president's campaign. And people were able to then connect regionally and then find each other in cities, and then they gave them the tools to then actually fundraise as teams and unite and actually come together at real people's addresses. So they would throw things like house parties, and they would geolocate that, and people would find those, and they would connect with the people, and it'd all be verified, so you knew who the people coming, and then you would be able to then, through your channels, invite more people, and it just took off. And it's the first time we've ever seen it like that. And now they're just improving the ways to do that.
So you still have to go to Rambau and knock door to door during this coming election. Good luck.
All right, any more questions from the floor? Any more questions? Okay, I'll ask the question. I keep constantly ask the questions. We have in Malaysia, we have a lot of average Malaysians having a followers of 10K, 20,000. They might not be personalities, they might not be politicians, they're just an average person on Twitter with a large following. Do you think there are enough efforts to actually translate their reach on the on-ground levels as well? Perhaps you can bring in your BN Youth movement as well. I mean, you have all these people, large followings. Are they translating something with the reach in the real world?
Well, I mean, a large following is important, but as I said earlier, it's not the end-all and be-all of social media. You know, you might have 10,000 followers. I have, I don't know, 200,000, whatever. But I have a blue tick. I have, my account is verified. So that was quite cool. Sorry. It's about how you manage the followers. If you tweet something to 20,000 people or 200,000 people, but it doesn't have the velocity that you want, then it's pointless. So what I did was, from the followers, similar to what Jeremy said just now, you have to try create subgroups which you actually meet in real life. That's very, very important. Once you have these groups or cells that you've created, then there's trust in how you convey the message and how you disseminate the message and how you reach out to people. I don't think that if you just have an online social media strategy, a purely virtual strategy, you're going to be successful. So in BN Youth, what I've done is I've actually gone out there to meet with real people who I've met online, create different volunteer groups so that the message can be amplified and that they can act on something. So I would say, to students, for instance, university students, let's meet up and talk about the government's plans for tertiary education. So we actually meet up, and they'd help disseminate that talk to their friends, so you get the multiplier effect. And I think that's much, much more effective than just relying on the fact that you have tons of followers, putting something out there and hoping that has a viral effect, because it doesn't. You have to push things along. Social media, it's a misnomer because you think everything is online, but actually the people who get the most out of social media, whether it's in terms of political support or monetizing it, are people who actually go down and push it and work the ground with the social media base that you have. So yes, by all means, feel good about the number of followers that you have, but if you're not leveraging on that fully, I think you're missing out on a big opportunity there.
Jason, do you have anything to add to that question?
No, that was pretty full, I think. Just, I agree.
You agree. Thank you. Oh, what about Jeremy? Do you see this happening in the United States as well, where you have, unknown personalities, bloggers or tweets or Facebookers, but they have a huge influence. Do they maximize their influence online and offline?
Yeah, I think it's, the two worlds, of course, in reality, they're the same in some ways. And I think exactly how you just put it, you have to deal with action items and deliverables, and you have to get people to then meet in the real world and do things in the real world. Social media is a really strong tool and a complement to that. And I think, you have to force the real world. That's what I think. There's many ways to do it.
But just as a barometer, it's really interesting to see. I was at was it Sari Ratu the other? I was at Sari Ratu. You know Sari Ratu? Indonesian nasi padang, really good nasi padang, by the way. And then I look across, I saw Wadina. I haven't seen Wadina for a long time. Wadina is a local celebrity, and I was talking to her about Twitter. As you do when you meet up. You always, how many Twitter followers you got? And she told me, I think I've got about 600, 700,000 followers on Twitter, which represents how many percent? What, 3% of the Malaysian population? I mean, it's massive, right? It's huge. And I didn't believe her, of course. Oh, really? I just talking to her, but on my phone, I was looking on Twitter, and I was like, wow! It really does give you a gauge as to what's out there. If you think what you do is cool, put it out there on your social media sphere and see how many followers you get. YouTube is another fantastic barometer. Many local Malaysian musicians, we think we sing in English, Butterfingers or OAG, wow, we sing in English, wow, so good. Then we put it on YouTube. J-Lo sometimes, a little bit. But then we put it on YouTube and we're like, wow, I got 10,000 views. Hey, I got 20,000 views. Hey, Butterfingers got 30,000 views. We're still talking in 30s and 50s. Then meet Uncle Hussein or Hujan, go and put up and get 1 million views. It helps us really to gauge what's cool and what's not. So yes, when I met Wadina, I realized Malaysia still has a huge number of people who are interested in who are women. Most of them are women, I would assume, following her, who are interested in what she has to say because she's heavily religious. So we are quite a religious society. It gives you an indication of what's out there. So I don't think there's any. I wouldn't call people average Malaysians. I'd just say that these guys are plugged in to certain spheres, which are influences. I think that's a really beautiful thing to see. That's one of the great things about social media, to see what's out there. Gives us a bird's eye view in a sense.
I was just going to address a slightly different topic. I realize the longevity of this particular panel is because we're waiting for the arrival of the PM. We're just trying to talk our way to 5:15. But I just want to say one thing. When Twitter became, took off 2-3 years ago, especially in the political sphere, I noticed that a lot of politicians on our side, BN, and on the other side, we would interact with each other a lot. Sometimes we'd even debate on Twitter. That stopped now, because I think, A, we're closer to elections, so no one wants to make a mistake. B, because I think everyone has sort of figured out who they want to hang out with on Twitter. So people have their own cliques on Twitter. I noticed that. You'd go to one person and you realize that they talk to only this kind of people. So it becomes a sort of self-affirmation thing after a while. And that's what happens in real life. In real life, when you meet with new people, you're very friendly on the first day of school. But, come the second week of school, the third week of school, you're just with the cool guys, or you're with the, fat guys like Jace, or, with the jocks, whatever. So, it happens on Twitter as well. So the initial excitement of being open and, wanting to engage with everyone is slowly dying off. And people are forming their own sort of silos on Twitter, which is interesting because it's counterintuitive to what Twitter is.
Jason, you wanted to say something?
In school, Kari had a lot of zits.
No, you don't want to start. No, don't want to start. We have a lot of time for PM arrives.
Okay, any more questions from the floor? We have a few more minutes here. Okay.
Hello. Okay, talking about social media and cyber media, which can penetrate more audience and we can talk almost anything. So is it, in my own opinion, is it a right time for us to let go our conventional media, which is printing and broadcasting media, in receiving and giving information to our people? So I need opinion from you, the panelists.
Well, just a quick answer to that is that I was told, I don't know, I checked the reliability of the statistics, but some of the most visited and some of the most retweeted news sources, even on social media, actually come from mainstream media agencies who have a presence online. So of course, the Malaysia Kinis of the world have a lot of following online, but so does The Star, so does, Sinar Harian, Utusan Malaysia. So you get a multiplier effect for mainstream news online as well. And it doesn't really happen the other way around. You don't really get a multiplier effect for online news in the mainstream media. So I think the point here is that how does mainstream media adjust to people getting news online? They've adjusted quite well, because I think a lot of them are still pushing their news out via social media, and that's why you find that in terms of hits, in terms of penetration, in terms of circulation, news agencies like The Star still do quite well, and they have to adjust their news cycle so that they get their news out there much quicker than before. I think newsrooms in Malaysia have been transformed. Previously, you had to meet your deadline, before the first edition goes out the next morning. But now you actually have to put the news out today. You have to put the news out now because it's breaking news online, and the fact that it's carried in the newspaper the next day, it's almost an afterthought, and just because there's a newspaper.
Yeah, I think I would add, as you said, just to echo that, they've become integrated. And on one level, the press and it's the fourth, at least in the way our government works, it's sort of the fourth check in terms of the check and balances. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Of course, newspapers are adapting and taking things online and engaging their users that way. But and of course, the revenue has been hit too. But there's no coincidence that the last election was the most expensive in the history of the United States. It was over $1 billion all told. Most of that money is spent on television. Television is still king, so it's just still the way it is. We're still in sort of a television era right now. But as you put it so well, they've become integrated for sure.
Since we're still chatting, I also think it's aligned with the trends of the day. Go and have a look at this thing called the Edelman Barometer. It's a trust barometer where they do a survey and find out what consumers or people trust. And it changes from year to year. Actually, it changes. Obviously, when there's a financial it's getting late. Financial downturn, people tend to trust banks and CEOs less. They tend to trust peer-to-peer social media much more. Things change. So just keep an eye on what the trends are, because everything will change just like this, just like that.